JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Wednesday, January 22nd, 8:55 on this fine morning. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at. The markets are gapping higher again, back-to-back sessions so far in the morning, and we'll see if it holds. There's not much in the way of catalysts now, right? So, Netflix kicked off the tech earnings yesterday. Johnson and Johnson this morning, nothing. There's still some more earnings on tap. American Airlines. You have Alcoa. Texas Instruments, I think, is tomorrow as well. Intuitive Surgical. So, outside of any crazy catalysts, it's hard to see the markets. Uh, I would think the SPY is going to hit 610. So nothing's certain, nothing's guaranteed. The second you get 100% convicted in a direction, the market will humble you. But it just feels like that's where it's going. And we do have Davos, right? So I don't know if any comments are going to come out of there. Yeah, but take a look after the close yesterday. I was on the rant the last couple sessions just talking about Netflix, and you had to think it was going to be a big sub quarter, right? I mean, just because you have a big sub quarter doesn't mean they're going to have a big beat on the revenue earnings side and things like that. But it was just an all around great quarter, a monster. So monster sub ads, their most in history. Also talked about they're going to raise prices again. And then their ad side of the business, right? It's similar to Amazon, right? That's kind of like the little area that no one really talks about because that's a huge part of the business that's really going to add margin dollars, right? Because not only are you getting subscription dollars, it's like a newspaper, right? You have someone back in the day not only paying for your newspaper subscription, but then you're able to sell ads in that newspaper, right? And if you have a huge circulation, it's kind of like it's the snowball. It's just a compounding effect, right? So that's kind of where Netflix is at right now. And some of the reason they don't announce membership numbers is, take a look. We're at 300 million members now, and some areas are saturated. So the next leg of growth is going to be being able to scale up the existing base they have. So anyway, in a nutshell, great quarter. I'll talk about Netflix in a second, but if you take a look at the SPY, I think it was 607 and change was the early December high. Early December into the Fed, like a couple days before the Fed. So that would probably be a big spot today. And then the flip side, that 600 handle, that's like even more important now, especially after it broke after the Fed meeting back in December. So certainly an area to watch. I would give it a very low probability we get down there this week, pending any crazy shenanigans. But just really remarkable stuff. And then also yesterday, there was rumors of more news on an infrastructure plan. And then it turned out it was Oracle announced with SoftBank is $100 billion. They call it Stargate, right? I love these names, right? What was it? What was the replacement of NASA? Well, anyway, the new division, what Air Force military. I forget what they call in the space, whatever it's called. But so now you have Stargate, and you saw some of those names in the infrastructure space that are not really per se exactly tied into AI, like Caterpillar sell off a little bit on news, but I think that was kind of overdone. I think those will come back. Space Force, that's it. Thank you. Yes. Good stuff nonetheless. And it's supposedly 100 billion, and it could roll out to 500 billion over time. So just more good stuff. So that's the overall market. So also, just with the doctor order, yields fell. The U.S. dollar. Take a look at 10 years down quite a bit off its highs over the last couple sessions. U.S. dollar, which has pretty much been in tandem, like lockstep with yields, that's starting to go down. Hopefully, don't go down too quick, and then markets can just continue to melt higher. And then last but not least, probably the best thing here is the amount of stocks trading over their 50-day moving average. Because to me, that's like a trend, right? So the trend is your friend. But as we get more stocks heading over their 50-day moving average, that's going to be the trend of more strength, more momentum, more upside. So pending any crazy catalyst, outside shenanigans, what have you, geopolitical situations, some crazy announcement on tariffs or whatever, which I don't think that'll do too much. Or I don't even know what else could take us off track. Or crazy pullback in crypto out of nowhere. All right, so that's overall markets. So Netflix, I put on the watch list this morning too, and I've been talking about that $100 strike, which was, I think it was 360 by 370 yesterday and in the morning coming into yesterday, and I'm like, the stock's at 858. There's no, it's a binary event. So of course, if they post a monster quarter like they did, then you look like a champ. But if they don't, that's a lot of premium to pay for some crazy beat and raise. So of course, in hindsight, maybe I should have grabbed a couple lottos, but not gonna stick to the plan. Otherwise, if you don't have a plan, usually things don't go the right way. But so you take a look at Netflix, new highs typically beget new highs. So it's going to open here at new highs. I think if it stays over that 1,000 threshold in the early morning, I might look for some spec calls. because I think now that it's rallying, you're going to have that rumbling that they're going to announce some kind of a split. And I was mentioning yesterday, it seems like every 10 years, it was 2004, 2015. Now here we are, 2025, another 10 years. Seems like every 10 years there's a split. So 10 to 1, if that happens, I mean, you got another 10% on the stock in the coming days. That's my humble opinion when they announce it. I don't know if they'll, doesn't make sense to announce right after their earnings, but you never know. So, uh, I think that'll be the next catalyst. So don't be surprised if I add some spec calls, depending on the premiums. I mean, if you look to 1050s, it'd probably be very expensive with 2 days left to expiration, depending on the volatility at the open. But I'll be patient there. So that's Netflix. Brings me into Roku, and I was talking on a rant yesterday morning, and when JPM Securities, I thought they initiated Perform, but they initiated Roku to outperform $95 price target. So it started to rally. I thought it was more of just a sympathy move with Netflix on the possibility that it might post a big number and the stock will rally. Didn't want to miss out, so I did add. So I was looking at February, so I'm like, let me get the lower strikes, inexpensive, because if it does move, I'll use that to buy some Februaries. It is gapping here in the pre-market. Will be a big spot here today. If you can hold the gains, I think 87 plus comes this week. If not, probably breaks under. If it breaks under 80, I'll revisit. But I'll revisit with the February strikes, and that'll encompass earnings. Still probably February 15th is a Saturday, so it's going to either be February 14th or it's going to be the following week for the earnings, which they'll announce the dates soon. So that's Roku. Here's Adobe, just picture perfect. It was up another 1.5% yesterday, but it was off the highs. Tested right up to the 440 handle before a late session pulled it down to 436. I think this continues. If it breaks over 440, I'm going to add some more calls. Unfortunately, the premiums they were gaining some premium into the end of the day, and then it just gave it back. But hopefully today over 440 starts to rally, gets near 450 in the next day or two. I'll lock some of my calls in, cover cost. I'll add some more, because if you can get over 450, there's some consolidation back at the end of December, and then maybe start talking 455, 460. As crazy as that sounds, but pinchers typically precede these these large outsized moves. So not just 1 or 2%. One of these days it's gonna be up 3-4%. If that happens, obviously the calls will be up quite a bit. MDB, I've been talking about MDB, or at least for the last week and a half on a call side. Finally, yesterday, added some strikes, got all the way up to 265. Was able to close some of my calls out for 100% to cover costs right around 1230. And then sure enough, that was the top. It gave back all those gains into the closing at 257. Still up on the day, nearly 2%, but it's gapping up here this morning. Call me crazy. I think it heads to 280. So I don't know if it's going to do it this week, but if it doesn't do it, if it shows some strength today, I might look for some calls into next week as well to play for that move. The 50 and the 200-day moving average are right there, 279, 282. I think that's where it goes. I've talked about, I was pulling back the chart. It's like every year, every time it has a pullback, a substantial pullback, a couple $100, it always bounces. I mean, one of these times it doesn't, but I don't think this is the time. And not to mention, it had great earnings back at the start of December. So it's sold off. I think it's just great opportunity. So don't be surprised if I have more strikes. What a day for Caterpillar. The infrastructure rumors, I think, was some of the reason. Well, I didn't think, but some of the reason why it sold off. But it gapped higher at the open over its 50-day moving average. I got some strikes after as I outlined on the watch list. I thought the 400s were a decent risk reward. I went to look at the open, too expensive. Went out, got those 410s. Rally was 392 at the time. Then it gets over 400. Got all the way up to 402.58 and then pulled back after that news. Still like this one into the 400s. You look at the levels, 408 back in December, 410 back in November. I think it can go up to 408. So I'll use like 397, 396 as a stop to close the rest out. But I'll hold for that possible at least test and break, because if it gets over 408, then the 410 is going to be up quite a bit, especially if that happens today, right? So really like the Caterpillar setup, and then I'll be done with it. They report earnings next week, so the premiums are unplayable for at least me to get calls into next week. That's Caterpillar. Joby, great session yesterday. I'm still waiting for 962 before I add some more strikes, up nearly 11%. Again, these names that are facing less regulatory issues and possible these headwinds that have been out there for a while, those are getting removed. And I think that just bodes well for a name for Joby. And not only that, you take a look at these companies that are still looking to come to market, and all the fees for permits, for all the mumbo jumbo you have to go through, that all costs money, right? Millions of dollars. So the fact that they might not have to do all that those filings and go to FAA, and maybe some of those permits and stuff don't have to come to fruition anymore. It just adds more to the bull case, especially on Joby. So that's Joby. TripAdvisor did nothing yesterday. Consolidation, the upper Bollinger Band is 1606. So maybe another day or two of chop. I hope not. But not going to go on a rant on that one. Trying to think of some of the other names I'm looking at. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, Solar Edge, T-Doc was actually in the green yesterday finally, so maybe that starts to go. Solar Edge still here at 1360. Uh, that was driving me nuts. Who did it? Someone, I forget is it. Someone's along Peloton. I forget one of those funds. Is it Einhorn? One of those folks are. So that's definitely another name I always have on watch. Always have some positions in. So might look to add some more calls on Peloton on strength at one of these days. And I think that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.